Coming up on this edition of Psyched Out, operant conditioning, sleep disorders, and Huntington's disease. All this and much more coming up next.
Chris sits down with a psychologist to explore operant conditioning. Take it away, Chris.
Thanks, Alex. We're here with world-renowned psychologist Guillermo Freud, who is 31 years old and has been studying psychology for 37 years. He is a specialist in operant conditioning. Thanks for being on the show with us.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Now, parents around the nation are trying to promote good behaviors from their children and reduce bad behaviors. Can you please explain to us how operant conditioning can help out these desperate parents?
So the first thing we have to understand is what operant conditioning actually is. Operant conditioning can be split into two parts, reinforcement and punishment. The reinforcement aspect of it can also be further broken down into two parts, positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. The area that I studied was positive reinforcement, which is giving a reward for a behavior that you want to be repeated. An example of this would be giving money for good grades.
That is extremely interesting, Guillermo. I was very interested. Can you please explain what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I conducted a study which we gave a monetary reward for children getting good grades, and our studies showed that the children tended to get better grades when a monetary reward was present.
Mom, look, I got an A.
Oh my god, all F's but one A?
Yeah.
Great job. Here's $1.
Thanks.
There's also negative reinforcement. See, the child is crying, so in order to stop the behavior, the parent gives in and purchases the cereal, causing him to stop crying. This reinforces the whining. Negative reinforcement is not recommended. Okay. There's also punishment. Punishment is fairly simple, but it must be done immediately after the action occurs. Positive punishment is adding something undesirable to an action to stop the action, such as shouting at a child. Negative punishment is taking something away that is desirable, such as taking away freedom during a timeout.
Wow, Guillermo, that was so interesting. Thanks for being on with us.
Thank you.
Psyched Out doesn't usually do this, but right now we have a reporter live in the field. Samir is about to gather some information about sleep disorders. Take it away, Samir.
Thanks, Chris. We're live here in Naperville, Illinois, where Neha Kaur, a woman with narcolepsy, is studying. Let's check it out. Excuse me, Neha Kaur. How do you feel? How does having narcolepsy affect your daily life?
Well, narcolepsy makes it hard to be productive throughout the day because I never know when it'll hit. For example, I can't drive because I never know when I may.
Mom, are you okay?
The plot thickens! Son, how do you feel about your mother having narcolepsy?
Well, Samir, you see, my mother's narcolepsy has completely affected my entire life. I have to be constantly alert, making sure she's A-OK 24/7.
There you have it, folks. A woman with narcolepsy. Back to you, Chris.
Thanks, Samir. You guys just saw one example of a sleep disorder called narcolepsy. Most other sleep disorders are not nearly as dramatic as narcolepsy, such as insomnia, the inability to fall asleep, and sleep apnea, irregular breathing while sleeping. These disorders are extremely difficult to overcome without treatment, and about 40 million Americans are affected by these diseases combined.
Breaking news. We've just been informed of a robbery in the Naperville area. A man was reported to have broken into a car and stolen only a water bottle. We're going to send it over to Chris, who's live on the scene.
Thanks, Samir. I'm here live on the scene at the 300 block of Mahogany Road, where I'm going to interview some witnesses to see exactly what they saw at the scene of the crime. Now, I understand you witnessed a crime. Would you mind explaining to us exactly what you saw?
I saw a man wearing a green hoodie, about 6 feet tall, wearing sunglasses, bright red hair, male stature, and I saw him knock on the door, and when the nice lady opened it, he just ran in.
What exactly did he steal?
A water bottle.
Well, there you have it, folks. Let's go see if we can get another eyewitness testimony at the scene of the crime. Now, as I understand, this young man right here was also a witness to the crime. Hi, can you please explain to us exactly what you witnessed?
Yeah, I saw a man with a gray hoodie on. He was wearing these like greenish khaki pants thing, you know, like gray Vans. I know he had brown hair. He was a white Caucasian male, about 6 feet tall. He had this watch on. It was silver. It was a lot like this model actually. Yeah, that's all I could say.
Now, how did the man break into the car, and what exactly did he take?
He knocked on the driver's side window, and then he took a, I think he took a water bottle, maybe, not sure.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, it seems that we have two different accounts of exactly what happened at the scene of the crime. What's that? I'm just being informed from the studio that Psyched Out has just attained security footage of the crime. Here it is.
Eyewitness testimony is an account of a crime given by a bystander who saw it happen. These accounts are often incorrect due to a number of cognitive distractions, such as anxiety or reconstructive memory, which is basically filling in gaps in our own memories. Elizabeth Loftus, a renowned psychologist in this field, has found that our testimonies are often unreliable and exaggerated. Today's events are a perfect example of Elizabeth Loftus's findings.
We have a special guest today on Psyched Out. Please welcome the brilliant Russian psychologist, Ivan Pavlov.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
We're glad to have you. Would you mind just starting out telling us what exactly classical conditioning is?
Well, classical conditioning is the pairing of two stimuluses. So, for my well-known experiment involving dogs and bells, I'd had dogs salivate at the sight of food. This was a natural response to a natural stimulus, an unconditioned response to an unconditioned stimulus. However, when I presented the food along with a bell sound, a neutral stimulus, the dogs eventually began salivating at just the sound of the bell, a conditioned response for a conditioned stimulus.
That's quite the process. How did you discover this?
Well, I was studying dogs' digestive systems, and then I realized that they were salivating at the sound of the bell before they even saw the food. So I decided I would study it and figured it out.
Wow, that's very interesting. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Yeah. We have a special guest here with us today. Dr. Whiteboard, specialist in Huntington's disease, is here to tell us about the basics of this disease. Dr. Whiteboard, thanks for coming here.
Thanks for having me. The official definition of this disease is a neurodegenerative genetic disorder which hinders muscle coordination and can lead to some major psychiatric issues. Some symptoms of this disease include catatonia, muscle rigidity, uncoordinated movement, and speech impediments.
So what's the prevalence of Huntington's disease in today's world?
Well, since you ask, about 1 in 10,000 people in this country have Huntington's disease. That's about 30,000 total Americans. So this disease is extremely rare. The average person is diagnosed between the ages of 30 and 50, but there is such thing as juvenile Huntington's disease. Juvenile Huntington's disease has to be diagnosed below the age of 20, and about 16% of all people who have Huntington's disease are juvenile. If a parent has Huntington's disease, then there's a 50% chance that their child will develop this malicious disease. Currently, there is no cure, and it is currently being worked on.
All right, thank you, Chris. And thank you for joining us on this week's edition of Psyched Out. I'm Alex Harris, and have a great weekend.